But Steve, I was thinking about when we start the conversation, we talk about leadership, care about yourself. But how the leaders can help your team. So are you in Barcelona? I don't know if you remember the accident that we had. I think it was in a company with a partnership with Lufthansa, with Andreas Lubitz. The flight goes Barcelona to Düsseldorf. Remember this? How you can, as a leader, as a colleague, anticipate and care, allow and care about others. How you can have this actively care.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes to building those cultures, right? Yeah, I think it's about recognizing there's it's such a big challenge
Yes.
building a culture of well-being. I think a couple of elements is first of all, it's a conversation between everyone within in the organization, and how do you elevate and give space to different voices. I think because leaders, and they have perhaps could have good intentions, but maybe they try and implement a pattern or a ways of working that suits their preferences, right? And we sometimes forget that we all have very different
Yes.
needs and wants and preferences and ways of working and life contexts and chaos and all these different things going on. So it's giving space in an organization for people to have that flexibility and to have that agility. I think that's very important. I think diversity is super important as well. And that could be in so many different levels, gender, race, sexuality, demographics, age, whatever. And we have different voices coming into that well-being conversation. And I think another big one for me is empowerment. And I always take a lot of influence and a lot of inspiration from the world of Agile. And I often say to leaders within programs, I say to them, think about how you're getting your team to action the work that you have to do. And I say to them, instead of telling someone something to do, give them a problem to solve. And so maybe they'll stumble across that at the beginning because they don't have the experience of the leader. And the leader's thinking, and there's a little bit of, reluctance there because they know that they can execute that much faster. But what you're doing, you're lessening the load on you as a leader because the team member, they're going to learn so much by just figuring it out themselves. And again, the leader could have the best intentions, but saying, go do this A, B, and C because they know that's the best way to do it. But then they might surprise you, the team member with the less experience, the more junior member, they may do 1, 2, 3 or X, Y, Z, and they think, wow. And there's a real surprise there. And so the leader is part of servant leadership, I think, to really allow people to, kind of make mistakes and learn on their own. And I think that's all part of the culture of well-being for me as well, Landresa.
Yes. And I like to see some, surveys, investigations, researches. And I was thinking a number of loneliness. The loneliness growing up inside the organization. And I'm worried about this because the people say, no, we have meetings. We have weekly meetings. We are together. So everybody online, in Teams, in Zoom. But the meetings are so informative. So how we can, building a great team, participation, active listen. So this is a big challenge, I think now. Do you see these movements
Yeah,
also?
yeah, it's a great point. We are never alone, but we're often lonely, right?
Lonely.
We're always
Yeah.
surrounded by people, but some people don't feel that they're engaging, that they're really connecting. And so, what you allude to there with a lot of meetings, it's just getting straight down to the work. And especially if people are working from home, which has been a real help for people post pandemic. It gives them that flexibility to live their lives and not to always follow the same pattern, at least a couple of days a week. Um, but what often happens in virtual meetings is that we squeeze out those social interactions that we have in the workplace when you just meet someone at the coffee machine or you meet them walking from your desk to wherever, another meeting room. If you're always just sitting at home and you're just back to back to back virtual meetings, then that can be pretty painful. And it doesn't matter if your camera's on. I even say to people, just turn the camera off, give yourself a break, because if you're on virtual meetings all day and your camera's on all day, that's a lot of pressure to take. And so one of the simple practices that we often advocate for is bringing a little bit of social capital back into meetings, whether they are virtual or in person. And one of the things that you can do there is checking in. You just have a couple of minutes, and depending on how many people are in the meeting, if there's only a small amount of people, everyone can do it. And if it's a big meeting, maybe you take a selection, but you just check in and you say, this is how I'm feeling today. Anything else that's on their mind, and then you just have a conversation that's on a more human level before you get down to the work. And that's super powerful for folks if they are feeling that they're not engaging or connecting, especially when they're working from home, perhaps.